Recently, I spoke with Leon Mickens III, who is a Gulf War veteran and a United States Marine who has served on active duty for 6 years. Leon, who like more than 60% of the United States combat veterans, including myself, is receiving counseling and medications for post-traumatic stress disorder, more commonly known as PTSD. Let's listen as Leon speaks with us about his career in the Marine Corps, his treatment and counseling for PTSD, and other matters.
My name is Leon David Mickens III, and I'm from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. So I just retired from Carnegie Mellon University Police Department after 29 years of service. I was a Marine from January, active duty 1987 to January of 1993. I went to Paris Island. I think they call it the swamp. So went there. Not knowing, you hear all kind of stories, but you never know until you actually get there on the boots on the ground. So one day, my buddy of mine, Alan Gallagher, and we were good friends, and we decided after seeing a recruiter come to our high school, Westinghouse High School. Came in. He was a young African American male, probably. So we're 18. He couldn't have been no more than 5, 6 years older than us. Came in with his dress blues on, and or his Charlies. He just had the shirt on. I don't think he had his full, but he had his dress blues on, and all the women were just all over him. I mean, they just was, and at that point, I just decided, or me and Alan decided we were going to join the service on the buddy system and everything, and it just went from there. I had college acceptance letters and everything, scholarships for different colleges. I did well in high school and everything, and wasn't sure if that was the path I wanted to go, so decided to join the Marine Corps. MOS school was, I think, a little over 3 months, and 1345, which is heavy equipment operator. So anything as far as forklifts, bulldozers, graders, any type of heavy equipment. But before I even went in, because I signed up initially for a 6-year stint, I was able to choose my duty station, and I decided that I wanted to go out to Camp Pendleton, California, and that's where I went. So I came home maybe 10 or 11 days, and then I think I was in Camp Pendleton by probably end of August, beginning of September of '87. We went to Guadalcanal as part of a task force. It was the 50th anniversary of Guadalcanal. They were bringing in VIPs and a large delegate of veterans who at this time were probably 70, 80, years old. This was their first time probably coming back to the island. So my job was to clear a path, to make sure that any of the veterans that were on in walkers or canes or anything like that, they had a path. They didn't walk up there, but we had to pave a nice road for them and make it look pretty and everything. So probably day one, I felt the presence, I felt the history, I felt the honor of being in this place because it's so special to Marines. It's one of the greatest battles, that we're taught in boot camp and everything. But yeah, that was one of the few places where I got emotional. I didn't know at the time what it was, but I felt the presence of a lot of men that passed, on that island during that time. So.
And the veterans that were there, they had served at Guadalcanal. They had fought during.
Yeah, they had served, and again, that was the purpose of them coming back or being invited back was they were part of those. I forget what they island hopping campaigns during that time, and there was, like I said, I'm not exactly sure how many came back, but there was like I said, it was a nice delegation that of older men that were, like I said, in their 70s and 80s that were babies back then. You might as well say, teens, that were charging the islands and everything, and so it was nice. It was nice.
Did you get a chance to talk to any of those veterans?
Um, I mean, I got a chance to shake their hands. We were as support. You don't like. That's for the generals. That's for the higher ups. I'm sure I did shake a couple hands and thank them, but for the most part, your support. You're out of sight, out of mind. So it didn't really bother me. At the time, but yeah, I think I wound up shaking some hands. But a lot of those guys, like I said, they were older, and it was more of a what's the word I'm thinking of? It was more or less not a photo op, but it was more or less to capture a very significant period of time, 50 years later, and what the guys look like. I think they had pictures of them, what they look like as 18, 20-year-old guys, and now 70 and 80-year-old guys now. So
Did you experience any of them reacting to having come back after having fought?
I think I've seen a couple of them like shed some tears. Tough jarheads, and you know, um, a lot of them lost friends there. So I'm pretty sure I saw it. Like I said, they wanted us. We weren't in the middle of the VIP or the delegation or anything, but we were off to the side, so you could see some of the stuff, but we weren't close enough to see a lot of the emotion. But I did see a lot of guys maybe have to sit down, or using napkins or handkerchiefs and everything, from being there and remembering some of the guys that they lost there.
That's part of the spirit of the Marine Corps. Everybody, there's a connection between veterans, and I think more so with Marines
Yes.
because of the way that we're trained in the background and the way that we're taught to look out for each other. We're such a small unit
Right.
whenever we're fighting that everybody knows everybody and everybody knows everybody's business.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you kind of you draw strength from that, and you also share in the sorrow
Yeah.
of those moments.
Absolutely.
Okay. And how long were you there?
I'll have to look at my book. I had a book that we were called TAD, which is temporary assigned duty, but I'm not exactly sure. It was probably about 3 months, maybe 3.5 months. We were assigned through the whole time, but we did island hopping. We hit Hawaii, we hit Guadalcanal, we hit Tonga, we hit Papua New Guinea, we hit New Caledonia. I may be missing one or two other little islands. We were actually able, because we were on a ship. We was able to hit the international date line and the equator. And on a ship, that's a big deal because you go from a polywog to a shellback, which is a Navy tradition. So that was another benefit of going on there and everything, and so
So your experiences in Marine Corps were healthy and hearty, and you didn't deploy anywhere or face any combat.
no, I'm a Gulf War veteran, so uh, August 15th of 90, we were deployed, Marine Expeditionary Force, first FSSG, which is first support service support group, letting support equipment company, and we're red patches. So you see the red patches on your hat and on your uniform leg, which, as far as I know, is the only outside of your insignias and stuff that Marines actually have on there, other than their pins, like for jump pins or scuba pins or something like that. But these are actually little cloth things that are on there. And it was the old shore party is what we were part of, and they just started calling it landing support instead of shore party. So I was part of. We were one of the first groups to come over so that we could offload planes and ships and everything for Gulf War. So I was there from August of 90 to April of 91.
All right, let's talk a little more about that. Uh, when you were told that you were being deployed there, what was your reaction?
Well, we were actually in the middle of. I was in Camp Pendleton, California, Camp Del Mar. There's hills and mountains everywhere. So we actually, for some reason, I don't know if it was an annual big hump or hike or something that we were going out as a company. Everything got shut down, and we were like, okay, we're going 15 miles out humping and or however long or whatever. So we were actually already we were out in the field, and at this time there's no laptops, there's no cell phones and none of that stuff. So we get out there. We're maybe there for maybe a couple of days, and we have in my unit we had some female heavy equipment operators, and after a couple of days they let the females go back and wash and clean themselves and everything for hygiene reasons and everything. And when they came back, we found out that Iraq invaded Kuwait, and we didn't pay no attention. We didn't, it was like, okay, that's good, I guess. It's on the other side of the country. But shortly after that, we got they started bringing up a bunch of 5 tons, and which is we Motor T was part of our unit as well, and we instead of humping back, we were being taken back in the back of the 5 tons, all of our equipment, everything, and so we get back, and we're in formation. They tell us, excuse me, go and get some chow and report back to the chapel at say 1400, 1600 hours. I can't remember exactly what time it was. So we were like, what's going on? Again, we didn't have any idea what was going on. So we get there, and the chapel on Del Mar is not a big chapel, but it's enough to fit our company. And we were actually there was a sort of like a PowerPoint or slideshow, and it was talking about all of the traditions and things that in that part of the world that they do different than what we do. So it was sort of like a a history lesson on Saudi Arabia and that part of the country. So we kind of was like, okay, well, why are they telling us this? This is, again, why are we, being briefed on this and everything? And after that was done, and that's when we kind of found out that, our unit was one of the ones that was going to be detached to First Marine Division. Like I said, it was I believe, and it was a Marine Expeditionary Forces, like moving a whole city from one part of the world to the other in a timely fashion, like within 72 hours. You know, that's how fast things move. And then you have, like I said, you have everything from admin support, Motor T, everything you can imagine to support, a war and everything. So at that point, they told us to go back to pack up our rooms, go to supply, and grab some desert camis, desert gear, and that was how we found out. We flew into Dahran Airport, which is now King Hazad something something, international airport, but it was Dahran Airport. Nothing but desert. Absolutely nothing but desert. I think the temperature was a little over 103, maybe 105 degrees. No humidity. No palm trees. No nothing. There was a couple tents that were set up to give us some shade and water, and we had to start acclimating ourselves to this new temperature because we weren't prepared at all. California was nice, as far as 70s and 80-degree temperature, but this was like 30 degrees, 25 to 30 degrees hotter. So we had to start, acclimating ourselves to this new place that we were going to be for whoever knew how long we were going to be there. So
Now you're out in the middle of the desert, and you look around, and all you see is desert. Okay, what sense of, for lack of better term, security did you feel knowing that you were just out there, a dot exposed?
Well, the, it was good that we didn't see anybody, so that was a good thing. You know, we could see enough where we weren't in the middle of the city, we weren't in the middle, you know, of a place where you know we possibly get ambushed, but at the same time we were, you know, we had other. Like I said, it wasn't just us. We had other people that were there. We were close to the airport, which we liked because if need be, then you know we had support. You know, if need be. But we didn't stay there long. We actually went from Daharan down to the port of Al Jabal, which was a big abandoned industrial port, huge, been abandoned for years, and that's where I spent the majority of my time. Because that's where all the ships were coming in, not just U.S. Navy ships, but international ships, maritime preposition ships. We offloaded 3 of those, I believe it was. Again, we were there, and probably the first 2.5 weeks, we literally didn't do anything because we were the first ones there. We were waiting for ships to come in. We were waiting for supplies. I mean, they were coming in, but it was just like there was a whole company of us, and you know, we got the equipment, our heavy equipment, and we're offloading the stuff so fast, you know. But there was nobody else there, you know. So we were just there waiting. Basically, it was a hurry up and wait, as you know, in the Marine Corps. So that's a good saying, that hurry up and wait. So that's what we were at. Everybody was aware of where we were at. We were aware of our surroundings. We were told this on a daily basis. We had our rifles with us. They were locked but not loaded. And because we were one of the first units over there, a lot of flatbeds and trucks that we had to use were from Saudi Arabia, and their drivers were Saudi Arabian. And we didn't know what to expect. We know that they don't like or care for Westerners. And so, you know, we were briefed daily. You know, again, we always had our rifles with us, and we were told, you know, use your best judgment. You know, we had to go convoys, you know, with them in their trucks and everything. We were actually in the passenger seat, you know, with our equipment or with our supplies, and we had to, you know, have them next to us and everything. So it was pins and needles. And we were escorted, I think, a couple of times by the military police. Or if we didn't go by ourselves, it was usually a convoy of us and everything. So, but still, at that point where we were at in that area, you couldn't see anything. There was, again, it was just desert. There was highways, but there were cars that were, you know, from the Saudi people that were, you know, going about their business and everything, but you never knew what could be you know, a bomb or a bomber or something. So we were definitely always on our P's and Q's and everything. So there was no interaction. The Saudis were being paid by the Saudi king to, and they were the Saudis were not our enemy. Of course, we didn't notice. We just knew that we were in their country, or you know, they don't like Westerners. Just as a history lesson, but at the same time, they knew that we were there to help. You know, because of the invasion of Kuwait and everything. So, no, there was not a lot of interaction on our level, other than getting in the truck. You know, telling them where they needed to park or back or be at, so that we can load and unload our equipment and our supplies and things of that nature. So there wasn't a lot of interaction, and there was definitely a language barrier there as well. You know, and like I said, it was a cultural barrier. There was a lack of trust. You know, I'm sure on both ends. So we didn't do a lot of interacting.
Okay. So you didn't get a chance to experience the countryside?
No,
In the
no,
desert?
I no,
Okay.
no, no.
Okay.
None of us wanted to anyway. So I'm pretty sure. Yeah,
All right. So then, how long were you there in that
8 months.
Okay, 8 months
Yeah, eight
there.
months. Yeah.
Okay. And when you left there, where did you go?
Left Saudi Arabia.
Saudi Arabia,
Came
yes.
back to Camp Pendleton.
Okay.
Yeah, we came back to Camp Pendleton, and that was, like I said, April. I think April 10th. I think it was, or 8th or something. I can't remember. And came back and life was so different. We had been working 12-hour shifts for probably 6 or 7 months. We were used to a certain routine over there. Everything changed. Not changed, but we changed, and we didn't really realize it. But we didn't get debriefed. We didn't get like we weren't offered counseling. If people wanted to talk about like what happened, or we did lose a guy while we were over there, but we never had a chance to um, reacclimate coming back to the states. And as you know, as Marines, you don't complain, or you only complain to other Marines. You don't do a lot of bitching and stuff. So we would talk amongst ourselves, but we 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 didn't know how to re, 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 reacquaint ourselves back to the United States. And I think that was a hard thing. It was just like we got dropped off in the middle of the night. We went to the barracks, got linen, and was told to be back in, formation at zero, blah, 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 100 hours or whatever. And then I think we were given a couple of days off. And then we reported back to our units. It took us a while to get our rooms back, for the guys that lived on base. And it was almost like everything was like supposed to be back to normal. And guys lost their wives over there. They couldn't take it. And it was just a little bit of everything. It was a lot to soak in. But like I said, as Marines, that's how you're I guess programmed. So
Okay, now you said some guys lost their wives while they were
well,
there.
their wives divorced them is what I'm saying. Girlfriends, dear John letters and stuff like that. So that's what I'm talking about. It's like because nobody knew when we were coming back. Nobody knew how long the war was supposed to last. It happened. It was over quick, but we didn't know when we were supposed to be coming back, and we didn't know that at that time that they were sending second LSB, which is out of Lejeune, to come and replace us, and we didn't know when. We just knew. We did our job. Nobody told us, okay, this is when you're coming back, or expect to leave, or anything of that nature. So
So, so there were no communications other than writing letters home.
yeah, there was. We were we wrote plenty of letters, plenty of care packages. There is a company in Saudi Arabia called Aramco, and Aramco stands for Arabian American Oil Company. And what it is that there's a bunch of Americans over there who work for this oil company, and they're on a designated base. It's a gated community, a bunch of Americans, and they live there. And I guess Arabian government pays for them to be there and to live over there. They're engineers and chemists and all this other stuff. So after being over there for probably, I think we went over there before the war started. So probably sometime in maybe after Thanksgiving or before Christmas, we were invited. The families extended to the United States government to host 4 or 5 Marines at a time at their house. So we can go there, get a regular shower, a regular meal, and we can make a phone call to our parents or your loved ones or whatever. So, and we were, I think I went twice. I think the first time I went over there, it was just overnight. The second time, I think I might have stayed there 2 nights, but it was a different company. It was a different family or whatever. So, and it was, like I said, there was a group of 4 or 5 of us that was able to do that. So that was nice. So I was able to talk to my mother, and I forget what the time change is, but she was happy to hear my voice and everything. So
Okay, so along with the stresses of not being able to communicate, were you constantly bombarded with news of the war that was going on?
so at the at we well CNN was the first. The Gulf War was the first war that was, I guess you could say, live streamed 24 hours a day. It had never happened before. So this was the first war in the United States history where it was live streamed, or it was I guess you could say like live streamed. It was 24 hours where they had coverage 24 hours. So again, we didn't have access to that. We had access to AFIS, which was the Armed Forces radio and television network. So you hear stuff on the radio, but we again we didn't have any internet, no communication. I mean, by the time we got a letter from home saying this is what's going on, we already knew what was going on, or things had changed. So we had no clue what was going on. I mean, our commanders and stuff tried to keep us as informed as they could, but at the same time, they didn't want us to. They didn't want to give us too much information because that's when people start telling people things, and you know rumors start and all this other stuff. And as they say on a ships, loose lips sink ships. So we didn't know a lot of what was going on until like the Gulf War. Like when they told us the Gulf War started, like we all knew that was because we started preparing a little bit better. We started making makeshift bunkers and getting our mop gear together. Preparing a little bit different because we knew for the buildup to go from Desert Shield to Desert Storm, we were actually going to be starting this war. I think it was January 15th or whatever day it was that they designated it as. So
Okay, so there was no two-way communication from you, from the war that was going on to you to home, or back home, writing back saying, "Oh man, we saw that this action was going on near."
well, we never gave as a Marines, we were kind of instructed, but like don't give where you're at. Hell, we didn't know where we were at. We were just in the middle of the desert. Like, I didn't know it was Al Jabal. I just knew it was a big industrial port. I don't know if there was any more. The only places I had been I was over there was Dahran Airport and Jabal. Everything else was a desert to me. There was no other that I can remember any other names of major cities that I was even close to. So, they told us, hey, don't give out your location. You can, you know, kill people. People die. So other than like flying in through Jabal or Dahran, and I didn't tell them that, but there's only one big airport that can, bring in C5s, 141s, and C130s. So but my mother and nobody knew that at the time. And Jabal was the same way. There's all kind of straits and seas over there, so it could have been anywhere. But no, we didn't give out any of that type of information because we really didn't even know. So
Okay, so you did feel the stress of being there, and when you came home, did you feel that you needed to reacclimate to coming back to, as we
yes,
called it, the world?
yeah. There was no, like I said, we weren't debriefed. We weren't, there was no, no. Even when the guy in our unit passed away, there was no counseling, no nothing. I mean, it was one day he's there, the next thing you know he's gone, and it's time to move on. But that's how we were trained, and we came back, and again, I remember it was the middle of the night or it was late at night, and none of us had anybody that had a room or a dorm or barracks. You know, those were taken over now. So we were in an open squad bay. Like I said, they gave us some fresh linen, the duty OIC or whatever, and they told us to report for formation or whatever. That maybe 1 o'clock or something since it was so late, or 1300 the next day, and then I don't even remember what happened after that. But even then, it was just like just get back to work. That was it.
Can I ask what happened to that Marine?
we were one of the first units or first wave to come over. He came over in the second wave, which was right before the Gulf War, or right before it went from Desert Shield to Desert Storm. And we're operating heavy equipment. We're working 12-hour shifts because we're offloading everything. And he's operating a 6,000 pound forklift, and the forklift a lot of people don't realize, but it did get cold while we were over there. I know by this time, October, November, December, the weather definitely changed, and then because we're on the water, that water coming off of there, at night it definitely changed. So some of our heavy equipment had cabs, like fully enclosed cabs, and some of them didn't. They just had what we call ROPS, which was rollover protective. So if it rolled over, and you always were told to wear your seatbelt anyway, then it would protect you if it rolled over or if it fell on its side or whatever. But some of the equipment, the 6,000 pound forklift had a fully engulfed cab. So while you were over there, you could close all the windows, and you can. We didn't have air conditioning, but if a fan helped, or they had heating in some of these, so you can turn the heat on and everything, and you didn't have to have all your gear on and everything. So to make a long story short, we're offloading equipment, and I don't know if it was because he was tired or whatever, but his forklift went off the side of the pier as he was offloading, supplies. The On every ship there's naval divers and everything, and there were a lot of things that were against him at that particular time. Number one, he had his cab closed. So if you've ever been like in a car, well, if you can imagine being in a car and it's sinking, there's a vacuum that's in there. It's hard to like break a window, things of that nature, or open a door, with all that pressure hitting. And number two, it's in the middle of the night, so it's dark. So he basically drowned in the cab because they couldn't see him, they couldn't get him out, and it wasn't until they attempted a rescue, but they couldn't even see down there, the divers. So it wasn't until the next day at the break of dawn that they had to pull the whole forklift out, and then that's where his body was at. So he drowned basically, which I can't even imagine. But they tried to dive a dive team in searching, and like I said, it was just they couldn't just get his body out. They had to bring the whole forklift out, and they was able to take his body out. So.
And how did that tragedy affect you and the guys over
Well, I was if I'm not mistaken, we had I think I was one of his squad leaders, but I'm not 100% sure. But they didn't tell us anything. Like we found out through word of mouth that, and then of course when the guys, not next to you, but the guys, your bid is set up 2 bids over, and the next thing you know, his shit is gone. You kind of figure out and put two and two together, and then the word of mouth came out, and then I think they finally told us what happened, and they did a little investigation, and there was nothing, nothing nefarious or anything. It was just, that's what happened. But again, you're a Marine, dude. Like it moved. It sucks, but there's very little time to mourn. And like I said, it was we there was that I can remember. There was no chaplain that one. It was tough because now, whether it's law enforcement or whether it's a school shooting or they at least offer some sort of counseling, get it off your chest, talk about it. Some guys do, some guys don't, but we were never given an opportunity to talk about a lot of stuff that happened to us.
So that affected you when you came back home. That was one of the things that.
Yeah, you didn't you were quiet, you were tight-lipped, you were dealing with the stresses that you had to deal with over there, and again, it affects everybody different. Um, you know, like I said, it was just reacclimating back to the United States and the way that we do things compared to 8 months over in the Gulf War, and
So, so did that lead to you seeking out PTSD counseling?
so we got back in August of 90, no, April of 91. Um, I was able to take leave. I believe it was July of that year, July. They would take leave. Me and some friends wound up going to Vegas just to take some leave and have a good time. And even there, it wasn't the same because again, we still weren't reacclimated. But then another task force. I don't know what happened. 91. I don't know. I don't know if that was. I can't remember what happened afterwards, but you come back and you get it reassigned to another task force or you volunteer for something, and it like I said, life just moved on. It doesn't stop, and I got out in January of '93 and came home and signed up for everything that they wanted us to do for the Gulf War Registry, I believe it was called at the time. Go and get a physical, get anything that you think is wrong, make sure it's documented and everything, and you know, um, and I mean, a lot of us knew that we still was dealing with the stress and anxiety, um, maybe PTSD, but the VA doctors weren't much help. Their job is not to, I don't want to say help you. It's not to help you get compensation or anything. They're to tell you, oh, you're okay, you're fine. So it comes with the territory, unfortunately. Got out of the service, and then started looking for a job. I had a car, so I had a car payment in January, February, or whatever. And my mother worked. She had already been there for I don't know how many years, 17, 18 years, I can't remember. And she told me that there was jobs that were there for security officer. I mean, there was other jobs, but because I just got out of the service, it was like sort of like a perfect fit. I can protect the country, I can protect this small campus and everything. So she set me up with an interview with the chief at the time. He told me to fill out the paperwork and everything. And November, it was the week of Thanksgiving. It was like the Tuesday before Thanksgiving. I was hired as a security officer at and that's where I was at. I got promoted to police officer. I went to the police academy, got promoted to police officer shortly afterwards, and that's where I was. That's where was until October 3rd of this year. 25 years as a law enforcement officer, plus another 4 years, or almost 4 years as a security officer. So me and my mom got a chance to work together. That was cool. So, and my brother, he worked there a short time as well. So,
And did anything from your service life relate to being with police officers?
absolutely, being in the service and being a law enforcement officer, it's a paramilitary organization, law enforcement. So a lot of what they do, how you look in uniform, formations, discipline, they all come hand in hand. So, I came out and looked the part of a police officer, and had already you know had the discipline, had to learn how to be a police officer. because, like I said, for the most part, as a Marine, you carry around a rifle with you. As a police officer, you carrying around a handgun, so that was a little bit different. But it was challenging, but it was being on a college campus. It made things a lot easier because you're now dealing with 18-year-old kids, who are it's their first time away from mom and dad, So the issues and problems were a lot different than dealing with world issues. When I first started, kids committing suicide was a big thing. But they only went about it certain ways. They only, they would, because we're a city of bridges in Pennsylvania, they would jump off of things, jump off of bridges. At the time, slitting your wrist was still a big thing, and overdosing on medications, whether it was prescribed or not, was a big thing. So those were tough, and it didn't happen a lot. But some of the kids had a hard time adjusting to college life, or just getting bad grades, breaking up with their first boyfriend or girlfriend. Like I said, having issues with their parents. So those things were sort of like, you go into a kid's room, and they tell you, they want to hurt themselves, or they're going to kill themselves or hurt somebody else, and you have to snatch them up and take them so they can get some help and everything. So yeah, we didn't do counseling. We would reassure them, tell them everything was going to be okay. We're there to help. We weren't there to to judge them or anything of that nature. It was just we have a job to do, and when you tell me that you want to hurt yourself or somebody else, then my job is to get you down to a place where you could talk to someone, a professional, and go from there. And that's we didn't do any counseling or anything of that nature. We had counselors on campus and off campus for that. A lot of times the kids would they would commit the act first, and then as the years went on, you would have kids that wanted to do something, but they would reach out for help first, if that makes sense. So they would post it on Facebook, like I'm having a bad day. I think I might hurt myself, and then you go and react that way. But that was like the last 10, 12 years of my career. But the first 10 or 12, or not, I would say the first 5 or 6 years, the act will be committed first. Typically, you would see the them slitting their wrists, or you would see them, or their wrist was slit. By the time we got there, we would, we had some student kids that are called EMS, and they would bandage them up, and then like I said, we would take them, or we would find pills, and they would be foaming at the mouth, and pills next to them, and things of that nature. So, and then as far as the bridge, we had 3 or 4 bridges around our campus, and that doesn't even include some of the buildings. We didn't have any kids that jumped off buildings, at least, thank goodness. But most of the time, it was either slitting their wrists or overdosing on medication.
But the majority of the kids were kids that went to school, got their degrees, graduated. Did they ever come back to talk with you?
No. There was times where kids that drank too much, and probably had alcohol poisoning, and did or said some things that they probably shouldn't have, would come back and apologize to you once they read the report, once they saw what their actions were, as far as with alcohol and being involved. But as far as like the ones that attempted or tried to commit suicide, no, we didn't. No, I didn't talk to a lot of them. A lot of them, after that happened, usually a lot of them left school. I don't remember too much of them coming back, but a lot of them would leave school, went and got help, or counseling outside of where they were at. So
let's talk about the Veterans Breakfast Club. How did you get acquainted with that?
Listen to stories, and especially the older stories, man. We thought we had it bad, but you listen to some of those guys from World War II, and woo, It's a whole different ball game. So, but like listening to the older stories, and now and it's weird because a lot of a lot of veterans whether you were was when you spent time in a war zone or you didn't, but at least the ones that spent time in a war zone, they just don't like talking about the time that they were there. And sometimes you go to these veterans breakfast clubs, and you know you hear these stories for the first time. They open up because they're hearing other veterans talk about it, and so the wives are like, wow, I didn't notice about him because he's always been so quiet about what happened or what went on, and or it might bring flashbacks and stuff. So sometimes it's good to talk about it again. For some people it is, for other people it's not. So I like Todd. I like I said, I think he's a nice guy. He especially for somebody who's never spent time in the service and everything. He's very knowledgeable, and he's a historian, of a lot of things that, I didn't even know. And I was like, oh, how does he know this? And he does a lot of research and a lot of, he cares. He really does care. So
So then I met you at ATP. How did you go about? How did you end up with it?
earlier in that year, January, I started feeling some physical signs I didn't know at the time of anxiety. And I couldn't figure out what was going on. I felt like a pressure right here in the middle of my chest. Not a heart attack or anything like that, but just a pressure. And at first, I knew it was like just a little bit of stress. The holidays had just came past. Couple of big anniversaries in my life had passed. Went to boot camp in January of '87. The Gulf War started in January of '90. Lost the one Marine I was telling you about. Lost a Marine, and we had scuds and some other things that happened while we were in the Gulf War. It was like a 4 or 5 day period. So I started feeling some of the anxiety again. I didn't know what it was. So I finally went to the VA. Actually, I went to MedExpress first. They couldn't find anything physically wrong. They asked me to go to VA. I went to the VA again. Couldn't find anything physically wrong. So I went back to work. And then 2 weeks later, I I was at work, and I felt like I was almost having an emotional breakdown, like right then and there. I worked 7 to 3, so like 8 o'clock. I don't know what happened, but I just felt like I was having an emotional breakdown. So I went and talked to my lieutenant. He was like, "Hey, just go up to the VA, do what you have to do. If you got to take time off, you have to take time off." And so from May of last year until now, I've been on short-term and long-term disability, dealing with the anxiety, depression, and PTSD. Was diagnosed with those three, I believe it was, which was almost a year ago, at least through the VA, and started feeling a little bit better. I started taking some medication immediately in May, and I wasn't being rushed back to work, but I felt like I still needed to get some help. So I I looked online for some counseling services that I would need in order if and when I was ready to go back to work, that they needed documentation that I was fit to go back to work. And I just happened to look at it wasn't it was it well at the time it's TMI, um, um, uh, or transformations or whatever. And so I made an appointment, the one in Monroeville, not far from here. and talked to one of the guys, and they said they had this program, and it's for first responders, active veterans, and active military veterans and first responders, and it's grant money that will get you in a program. Met some Marines and other service members there, and heard the stories and stuff that they went through, and that's how I was introduced to For the Future, TMI, Transformations, Adventures in Training. Are all under the same umbrella. I remember John Cole, growing up as a Steeler. I didn't know he was you know a veteran, so that was nice. Met his wife Deborah, and his kid, and some of his family and everything. So, but like I said, it was very welcoming, very nice people. I'm there. You can go back there and train for free as a veteran. They don't charge you or anything. So that was pretty cool. And the thing about it is the same thing in the Marine Corps. We didn't lift weights. We did, whether it was boot camp or whether it was, just in the fleet, you did the confidence course, you did, the circuit course, and you did a lot of things that, had nothing to do with weights. It was your own body weight and, things of that nature. So,
Now, what helps you most now get through the stressors that you've been through and whatever may be coming down the road?
I guess me right now, still staying on my meds, family, and then not being in that environment anymore. Just taking a lot of that from between 6 years in the Marine Corps and 29 years, 35 years of stress where, I try to take my job as serious as possible. I try to treat everybody the same. And so I put a lot of pressure on myself, to make sure I was doing everything, not perfect, but, and so once that stress was taken out of my element, it made things a little bit easier, to be able to be around friends and explain things, what was going on. And like I said, the medication and the exercising, like I said, I wish I lived closer to where they're at, because I probably would have flourished a lot more if I was closer and I could work out more, or getting that tank that was, nice, or the sauna, so those things I wish I could have done a little bit, or I would have lived a little closer so that I could take more advantage of those things.
You're talking about ATP right now.
Yeah, yeah. It's and they encourage you, but they don't push you. Like they don't you work at your own pace. You set goals and everything, but they don't. It's not boot camp or anything like that. They just want to see you progressing and everything, and so they don't. It's not some DI in your ear or John in your ear and everything. He just encourages you and just wants to see you do better and better every time that you're there.
So right now, where would you say that you're at as far as being the person that you want to be?
I don't know how to gauge that. I know the person that I was as to my pre Gulf War, and it's been so long that I remember my attitude, my energy, and everything. Since then, I mean, it's been so 32 years since I remember feeling, feeling different, feeling, you know, and so I don't know how to gauge it. I'm blessed that I'm able to get the help that I need, that is offered, through the VA or anywhere else, and I take advantage of those programs to help me I don't think I'll ever be, back to the way I was before, but I do feel that I'm getting better and better every day. I feel it's not a sprint, it's a marathon at this point. So not that I ever thought of hurting myself or anything of that nature, but it's just living with this PTSD and anxiety and depression is real, and just trying to make it day by day. Well, between the service and law enforcement, and I'm sure there's a lot of people that may disagree with me. I've There's times where we had to be warriors, but I always looked at myself as a guardian. I always looked at myself because a guardian is exactly what that is. They're out there to protect, you know, people that need the help the most. Whether you agree with it or you don't. And the same thing with law enforcement. I wasn't out there, shooting people every day and roughing people up and arresting people all the time. Most of what I did was making sure that people were safe and like I said, I saw myself more of being a guardian than as a warrior. But whether it's the service or in law enforcement, you train to be a warrior, you know, and so that switch can go off and on. But most of the time, you're in that. To me, you're in that guardian mode. You can't be in a warrior mode all the time. That's not good. To me, that's not good for you, your mind, body, and soul. So,
Can I use that?
sure.
Thank you.